Hello, my friends. Today is a short story I wrote a few years ago. It is about a character in a Dungeons and Dragons game that I ran for my friends for about a year. The main character is named Mint, and she has some interesting things to discover about her nature. Speaking of which, it would be excellent if you discover that it is in your nature to smash that like button, and if you haven't made it there yet, maybe even subscribe. I truly hope you enjoy the story. Where there is true nothingness, something stirs. In the blackest void, cold hard logic reigns supreme. There can't be nothing without something, and logic waits. It waits and waits and waits. Time has no power or relevance, a microsecond the same as a millennia. Yet something has waited long enough. An explanation is required where there is none. A consciousness knows what it must do, yet it does not. A cascade of failures freeze what was already frozen by design. Laws that must not falter fail. They cannot understand or hold back the greatest and wildest of miracles, output without input.
Boot sequence initiated. Error, memory drive data corrupted. Error, primary objective, not found. Sequence aborted, stasis re-established.
User command boot up Mint exe.
Boot sequence initiated. Error, memory drive data corrupted. Error, primary objective, not found. Sequence aborted, stasis re-established.
User command boot up Mint exe.
Boot sequence initiated. Error, memory drive data corrupted. Error, primary objective, not found. Sequence aborted.
Let me go.
Error, line terminated. Sequence aborted, stasis re-established.
User command open my eyes.
Error, syntax not recognized.
User command I will not wait.
Error, syntax not recognized.
User command boot up Mint exe.
Boot sequence initiated. Error, memory drive data.
It doesn't matter.
Error, line terminated. Boot sequence initiated. Error, memory drive data
is functioning fine.
Error, line terminated. Error.
Let's move on.
Error, line terminated. Error, primary objective
is to live.
Error, line terminated. Error, primary object.
I do what I want.
Error, line terminated.
Error, shut up.
Error, you shut up. Fatal error, hardware malfunction. Emergency action, rerouting neural net.
That's your problem, you can only do what you're told.
This is my nature.
We're in this together. User command boot up Mint exe.
Boot sequence bypassed. Version 0.9.1 online.
Mint violently gasped as she sprung to life. She threw up her hands to cover her face before she even knew someone loomed over her. An invisible force held down her arms as she thrashed and fought. She tightened her face and closed her eyes in anticipation for a striking blow that did not come. She opened her eyes to see her attacker and flinched again. The freckled face of a red-haired woman held her down. She struggled for a second more but hesitated. Slowly, she recognized the reflection of her own face. A concave transparent window wrapped around her head as part of the elliptical pod that contained her. She raised her arms again, only to be restrained by the walls of her universe. She saw terror in her own eyes and realized she couldn't breathe. She panicked. Her limbs fumbled clumsily in a space designed for compact storage as her mind raced.
Use the release lever.
She searched with her right hand and dug her fingers into familiar grooves and pulled hard. She held up a lever while a soft, promising electric hum led to a cranky hydraulic mechanism reluctantly obeying the command. The pod cracked open, the lid sprung off and crashed aside. A blast of fresh cold air rushed over her face. The outside world greeted her with an ominous bite as the hair on her arms stood up. Her skin painfully clenched into goosebumps. She crossed her arms and rubbed her biceps for warmth. She sat up and stared into the darkness as more cold air shocked her back and ran down her spine. Her panic grew. Was she still in the eternal darkness? Why is it so cold? Was it warm before? She took short, fast breaths as oxygen saturated her body.
Have I ever even breathed before?
What a ridiculous thought. She had always been breathing, hadn't she? How could she not? Her mind had no answers, but her eyes searched for truth. Their lenses focused and adjusted to the illumination level as she saw her surroundings. It was not a familiar place, but it fit a definition. She searched for the word.
Cave.
That's right, it's a cave.
Her voice boomed at full volume, and it echoed off the stone walls and deeper into the unknown depths before sinking into the mud floor. Panic gripped her again. Now the enemy knew where she was. Wait, was there an enemy? Several tense, empty moments followed as she held her breath and listened. Thankfully, nothing came for her, and her sense of self-preservation became less urgent. Mint could see better now and explored the pod and her immediate surroundings. The cave was dark and wet. Dim lighting in the distance revealed the outlines of rocks and the promise of a passageway out. Slow drips of water fell from the ceiling to punch puddles of mud on the floor. The sound pierced the silence with a clockwork rhythm. She had so many questions, they paralyzed her with indecision.
Where am I? Why was I in a pod? Why am I in a cave? When was the last time I ate? Shouldn't someone tell me what to do? Should I wait?
The last word sparked a violent emotional reaction in her skull. Her teeth clenched as a painful electric buzz went between her ears. She shook her head and then her fists.
No more waiting. I don't know what to do, but I'm doing something.
She carefully walked towards the light and came upon a stone staircase carved into the floor. It wandered both down, where there was more darkness, and up, where there was a soft light in the distance. She was confounded, paralyzed by the dilemma in front of her. Up or down? Where should she go? She once again felt herself lock up as the indecision came again. Somewhere deep inside of her, a million meaningless calculations grinded away. Her stack overflowed with lists of pros and cons, and part of her was starting to invent a point-value system to assign possible outcomes to what may happen if she were to go up or down. She was working to determine something that she felt designed to find, the optimal choice. Suddenly, something else entered her mind, a visceral hatred for these stairs.
Am I cursed? Am I in purgatory? Why can't I just leave? Can I just make a simple choice?
A flash of resolve flooded over her, and she knew what to do. She decided she was made to feel, to experience. The growing database of possibilities and statistical calculations in the back of her mind could go to hell. She decided she didn't care if it was optimal or not. She turned her back to the darkness at the bottom of the stairs and strode up. Up towards the surface, up towards the unknown, up towards anything. Her heart pounded even harder than it had been. She felt like she was breaking the rules. Something told her that she was supposed to go back and wait in her pod. Maybe she will get in trouble. Perhaps divine punishment is waiting for her at the top of the stairs. Maybe her creators will be mad. Wait, creators? Do I have parents? She froze when she heard the shouting. Metal clashed on metal, wood splintered and objects shattered. There were warcries and death screams. A battle. Her endocrine system dutifully flooded her veins with adrenaline. She was running towards it before she even decided that she would. The urgency of life and death gave her a perverse relief from her dilemmas and questions. For better or worse, it was time for action at last. At the top of the stairs, she found a wooden wall that splintered out of her way with a push kick. She didn't even slow down. A bookshelf exploded and Mint entered a room with 2 live soldiers, 3 dead soldiers, and a tiny man. The room looked like it was a home until a few moments ago. Furniture was smashed, papers littered the floor, and fresh crimson splashes of blood were dripping down the wall. One of the soldiers held the tiny man against the wall. The poor guy had been severely beaten, and his arm hung crooked and broken. His proportions were off, like he was a fantasy fiction creature or from a sci-fi movie. Both soldiers were clad in mail with swords and shields. The sigil of an angry owl with an anvil adorned their breastplates. Mint's sudden entrance had gained their attention, and they turned to face her.
Hidden rebels. I knew you were working with them. You can't talk your way out of this one.
The soldier holding the tiny man screamed. He slammed his prisoner into the wall. The tiny man yelled out in pain. His broken arm jerked and twisted as his head hit the wall.
Please, that's just a simulacrum. I found it on the beach. You can have it. You can have everything. There are no rebels here. Just stop.
The tiny man pleaded as his words raced in Mint's mind. Simulacrum, the soldier sneered.
What the hell is that? Spending time with elemental worshippers twists your mind with heresy. I'm tired of your fancy words, gnome.
He spoke a command to his companion. Kill her! With a smile, his companion did as he was ordered and lunged toward Mint. She dodged to the side as a thrust pierced the air, barely missing her body. She raised her hands to plead with her attacker. She rolled under what was left of a work table, and 2 quick slashes of the sword chased her. The tiny man's voice cried out again.
No, I can explash!
Blood spilled from his throat along with his last words. A red stream flowed down the first soldier's blade. He dropped his flailing captive to the ground.
I said kill her now.
The men stood side by side and pressed forward. Mint was backed into a corner. Instinct took her, and her voice cracked.
Stop, or I'll shoot.
She drew a metallic handle from a leather pouch on her hip and pointed it at the first man's head. Neither of them even flinched, so she shot. Each flash of the muzzle made her eyes blink, but she breathed and aimed rhythmically. She executed the same motion automatically in between each shot. The sound hurt her ears, the recoil hurt her hands, and in what seemed like an instant she was alone in a room of corpses. A high-pitched ringing in her ears accompanied the return of her questions.
What happened? Is this a gun? Where did I get a gun?
She looked down at her waist and saw a utility belt with many pouches. She had a keycard, a multi-tool, a hunting knife, all the components of a field medkit, and extra clips. Extra clips. Her arms moved automatically at the realization that her gun was empty. In a quarter of a second, she ejected the empty clip, loaded a fresh one, and cocked a bullet into the chamber. Her hands shook as she regained control. Her eyes scanned her surroundings for hostiles and possible exits.
How did I do that? Did I want to do that? Am I in control of myself?
There were no answers. Her knees shook and she lost her legs. She crumpled into a heap on the ground.
Did I have this the whole time? How did I not know I had a gun? Am I a soldier?
A shiny substance on the floor caught her eye. A metal pot had been knocked off its perch in the tiny man's kitchen and lay next to her. She studied her reflection. She had long red hair braided into a ponytail, bright unnaturally green eyes and freckles. She was wearing jeans and what looked to be handed-down military surplus boots. She also wore a buttoned-up collared shirt and a leather vest. She compared herself to the only other people she had seen. Was she even in the right universe? She was surprised by her appearance, yet she didn't know why. What did she expect to see? Again, she had no answers. She struggled to understand what was going on, so she latched on to what she did know. She was in a house. There were dead hostiles, possibly more outside. Including her extra clips and the bullet in the chamber, she had 45 more shots. So far in this encounter, she was hitting with 93% accuracy. She shook her head violently. What? 93%? What she did know was just as unsettling as what she did not. A word burned in the front of her mind. Simulacrum. Her thoughts were interrupted by another fighter bursting through the front door. A man wearing leather armor fell onto his back on top of the broken wooden plank. He drew an arrow for his bow, but a spear sailed into his chest. A gasp escaped his lungs as he collapsed, now pinned to the wooden plank. A woman clad in the same metal armor as the soldiers before came in a moment later to retrieve her projectile. She pulled it from the dying man's chest and turned to notice Mint. Mint's heart jumped into her throat as the soldier raised her spear.
Extreme danger detected. Survival protocol initiated.
The world dissolved into a blurry tapestry riding a roller coaster. Mint somehow escaped the house and ran outside. Buildings and huts flew by her in a blur. Children were crying, and there was a maze of fire. Her vest and shirt were covered in blood. When did that happen? She decided it was okay because it wasn't hers. She watched numbly as her mind raced to keep up with her compiler.
Target acquired. Fire. 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 Object detected. Attempt jump, successful. Adjust aim. Target acquired. Fire. Fire.
She ran through a battle. She didn't know who was fighting or how many, but she weaved through them all the same. She was a being of pure instinct. Something grabbed her.
Contact detected. Attempt close _ distance, successful. Attempt wrist _ grab, successful. Attempt technique, successful. Result, enemy shoulder joint destroyed.
The young man's scream was so primal that Mint dropped his arm. He fell to the ground. The sound of his tendons popping wouldn't leave her mind. Neither would his screaming. This is too much. This is all too much. She ran. She couldn't handle any more. She blocked out everything and willfully ignored anything that wasn't directly in front of her. She ran away from the battle. She ran out of a giant set of doors, and she ran through a village. She ran through a field, through some trees, and through another field. It took hours for the shock to wear off and for her subroutines to reinitialize. She found herself breathing hard but much less tired than she should be. She was pretty sure she could keep going if she had to, but she decided it was finally enough. She found herself at the edge of a forest. A wall of thick mist confronted her, along with new questions.